Hi there! I recently found this very cool GitHub repository that allows you to create these AI functions. So you can define a function by giving it the name of the function and the arguments it takes and the type of the return value. And then you can call that function, and instead of having to actually write the function, you will just get the output from ChatGPT automatically. And this gave me an idea. Could I create a whole code interpreter using the ChatGPT API? So then I could actually write code in my own made-up language. So let's try and do that today. So if you take a look at this repository, the aifunctions.py, and you go here, you can see that they are sending a message to ChatGPT here. You are now the following Python function. And then here will be the description and the function signature. And then it says, only respond with your return value. Do not include any other explanatory text in your response. And that's basically it. So let's try to do something like this, but with a whole code interpreter so that I can write my own code and then ChatGPT will interpret the result of that code. So here's what I'm thinking. I can say something like, you are an AI code interpreter connected to a web server. You know all the programming languages, even made up ones. Given the following input and code, provide the result of the code. Answer with HTTP status code headers and response body. For example, and then let's put here HTTP/1.1 200 OK. I think that's how you do the first line of the response. And then there will be a header name and a header value. And let's put a couple of these here. Header 1, header 1, header 2, header 2. And then let's put response body. And then I will give it the code. And let's just try something like I put some PHP here. So let's say echo get name. Let's put something like hello get name. And then I will say input. And I will give it the input as the first line of the HTTP request. So I will say get/hello.php question mark name equals Michael. And perhaps I should add these ticks here to show where the code ends. Okay, I think this looks pretty good. So let's see what will happen given this prompt. Okay, so it worked. So it says HTTP 1.1 200 OK. Content type text HTML, charset UTF-8. Hello Michael. Okay, let's try something a bit more complicated. If I say post, and well, this is not working properly. I need to copy this to my editor. So if I put here something like post hello, and then I add here age equals 27, and I edit this echo statement and I say hello name, your age is, and then I will add post age. And let's copy this to ChatGPT and let's try this one. Okay, well, we got a result, and this is actually the correct result, but it added all these extra things in here. Now it might be because I used the edit function, then I think that will change some of the settings in the prompt so that you will get a different answer. So let's actually create a new chat and paste this here and see what happens. Okay, now we got this. Hello Michael, your age is 27. Now I should be able to just make up a language here. So instead of doing PHP, let's just say something like the name, because in this language we don't have $signs or var or let or const. We have the name equals get from URL name. The age equals get from post age. And let's make this a bit more difficult by adding something else here. So let's add job is a programmer, and let's add here height equals 193 centimeters. And then let's add here something, instead of echo or print, we will use say your name is, and we don't have to add any plus or any comma in this language, we just add the next one here. So we say your name is name, and your age is age. And we don't have to add any semicolons or anything here. So let's see if ChatGPT will understand this made-up language. Your name is Michael and your age is 27. Okay, so it works. That's pretty cool. Okay, so now that we can see that this idea actually works. Let's make this so that we can actually write some code into a file and then open that in the browser and ChatGPT will render it. So how could we do that? Well, we have to use the ChatGPT API. So let's create a new file here first. And I will just call this index.php. And I will copy my ChatGPT API code from another project. I will go to my Tidlaroo project. And I should have somewhere here in the source folder chatgpt.php. So here I have a basic function that takes a message and an API key and then sends it to the ChatGPT API and then returns with the result. So let's copy this and add this in here. And let's go here and let's include that file here. And I need to get an API key. I will actually get that from this project as well. And I will include the settings here. Alright, so now we should be able to say something like function parse code. And we will give it a string of the file name and we have to pass in the API key as well. And what will we do here? We will first send a message to ChatGPT. So let's say response equals ChatGPT, send ChatGPT message, which will be message, which I have to create, and the API key. So let's say message is, I'll actually put file get contents here and I will read the message from a file. It's so long. So I will say message.txt. So that's the template for the message. So I will put this into a file. I will create message.txt. And here I will add some placeholders for the input and for the code. And actually I have to get the input as well. So let's say string input. And then I will say message equals str replace. And I will pass in an array of the input and the code. And I will replace them with the given input and file get contents from the file name. And I will pass that into ChatGPT. And I made some mistake here. I have to pass in the original message. Okay. And then since I told it to give me the headers as well, so I should parse the headers. So let's say this. Parts equals explode from two new lines from the response. So the first part will be the headers and the second part will be the body. So I will limit it to 2 elements. And for now, let's just do return parts 1. So I only want the content for now, but we will implement the headers as well later. So let's do that. So let's create a code file here. So let's call this something like test.gpt. And I will say something like the name equals John, the age equals 28. And then let's say something like say my name is and name. I am age years old. Okay, this is our code that we want to run. And let's go back here and then let's call this function. Let's do echo parse code and we will pass in the test.gpt and let's add an empty input for now and I will pass in settings API key. And let's see if we run this, what will happen. So I will go back to my GPT code interpreter and I will do PHP index.php. My name is John. I am 28 years old. So it works. That's great. So now we actually should be able to do PHP-s localhost 8080. And I have 8080 already for something, so I will put 8089. And let's go here. So now we should actually get that response here. Now it's going to be slow because it will send the request to OpenAI every time. But here we got, my name is John, I am 28 years old. Now what would be cool is if we could actually create a file structure here. So if I say something like code and I will add a file here and I will call this hello.gpt. And then let's just copy this code here. And then in the index, what I could do is I could parse the request URI here. So I could do something like file name equals base name of the server request URI. And then I could say here file get contents of that file name. And then the input should be, let's say input. Let's call this code. So the code will be file get contents of this file name. And the input will be server request method and a space and then the request URI. And it will be a new line. Let's do it like this, input dot equals a new line, actually two new lines. And here I will add HTTP build query and I will pass in the post data. So now it should get the request method and the request URI, the first line, and then it should build the query parameters from the post data. And I'm not quite sure if I can use an HT access here because I'm using the PHP built-in server. I don't know if that works. So I will say, I'm pretty sure it doesn't work. So should I just delete this? And I will, for now, just use get file name. And I will not use base name here. And I will call this page. So this will be this current directory slash the page. Okay, so now what I should be able to do is, let me add here something. I will call this Jack. And if I go to my browser and I go to index.php page equals hello.gpt, then it does not work for some reason. Path cannot be empty. File name. File name is empty for some reason. Sorry, I have to pass in the file name, not the code. So file name. And I have to say here code slash. And let's refresh this page. And now we are loading, so let's see if we get the result. Okay, so now we say, my name is Jack and I'm 28 years old. So now what we can do is we can actually do something like this. Let's create a new file here. Let's call this form.gpt. And we will say something like, the form equals form, name, text input, age, text input. And then we can say form.render with action. And we will put an action to index.php page equals handle.gpt. And this will post, hopefully, to this URL. Let's add here post so it knows. Now this of course is not a real programming language. I'm just making this up as I go. And then I will create a file here called handle.gpt. And here I will say the name is post.get name and the age is post.get age. And then let's make some sort of if statement here, but let's not use if. Let's use should. And then I will use the gender of operator, which I just made up. If the gender of the name equals male, then what we will do is we will say, hi man, what's up? Your age is, and we will say 8. Else, otherwise, say, what's up girl? You are age years old. So now if we go to our to our form.gpt, we should have a form here, hopefully. And look at this, we have two input fields here. We don't have any kind of names with these, but I am guessing that they have some sort of name here. Okay, the names are name and age. Okay, so they are uppercase, so they might not work. So let's fix our code that we wrote. Let's make this in the format of text input. And we will put here name, and here we put text input, age. Maybe that will fix it. Let's, and I want to have some sort of like labels here. And then I will add here with labels true. And then I will refresh this page and see what happens. Okay, now we have labels and we actually have a submit button as well. So now let's actually check, do we have an action here? Yes, we are using the post method with action to this page. So if I now say here, name is Jack and age is 50 and I submit, we are submitting and we are doing something. Missing required parameters name and age in post request body. What? So we actually got an error. Okay, so this actually has automatic error handling. So let's see what is the problem here. I forgot to pass in my input here. So let's refresh. It should send the form data again. So maybe now we get the parameters. What's up, girl? What's up, girl? You are 50 years old. What? Jack? Okay, maybe it did not understand my gender of keyword. So let's do this. Get name gender of the name. If it is male, then hi man. So let's refresh this actually. We don't have to refresh this page, we just refresh the next page. So we post here again and hi man, what's up? Okay, so let's go back and say Matilda, submit. What's up girl, you are 50 years old. Okay, so now we have implemented detecting the gender of a name in our new made-up language. Now, actually, this means we can code in any language and have it interpreted. So we can say something like hello.c, and we can say include webdev.h, because of course we have to use this library. Didn't you know about this library? And then we can say int main, and we can return 0, and here we can say post data equals webdev get post data. And then we can say that const char name equals post data get param name, and we can say const char age equals post data get param age. And then we can do printf, and it's a string, and we will pass in webdev format HTML of hello. How do you concat in C? I don't actually know, but it doesn't matter. I'll just use a dot. Name, your age is an age. I think it's plus. Is it plus? No, maybe it's something more difficult than that. Anyway, this should work. So let's save this and let's go to hello.c and see what we get here. Now actually I didn't pass in any name in the post, so I have to change my form so that it posts to that one. But let's see what our response will be. Okay, that took a long time and then we got an error. What error did we get? That model is currently overloaded with requests. You can retry your request or contact. Okay, great. So while we are waiting that OpenAI fixes their platform, let's fix this code so that we can actually post to this. Well, actually, we can just change our form to post into hello.c. And let's try this again. Let's go to our form.gpt if OpenAI lets us do this. Yes. And then we add here Michael and age 34 and submit. And we should go to hello.c and hello Michael, your age is 34. And I think that is exactly what we wrote here. Hello, your age is 34. Okay, so now we can actually do web development in C and very easily. Now let's try to do some Rust. Let's do rust.html. And let's do something like h2, my first Rust website. And here, of course, we will use the well-known question mark Rust, and we will say let request equal request get. And then we will say let name equal request dot param name, and let age equal request dot param age. And then we can do println, and we can add here hi name as str, your age is, and age parse as str. So this should actually work now. And we will save this and we will go to our rust.html and see what happens. Error. Request get is not a valid function call in Rust. The code has a syntax error and cannot be executed. Okay, well, I'm sorry. I forgot to say use webdev request, of course. And we, of course, have to post to this. So actually, no, we have to get. So let's try this again. Now we have to add here age is 25 and name is Jack. And let's try this out. We get nothing. What? Empty response. Why is that? What's going on? Let's try one more time. Okay, now we got my first Rust website. Hi Jack, your age is 25. Okay, Rust web development has never been this easy. Now let's handle those headers in the response and the response code. So here we get the parts. So then we should parse the response code. So how do we do that? We will say something like, we can actually do just response code equals substring of parts 0 and there's http:/1.1 and space. So this is 9 characters. So we will cut it at 9 and we will take 3 characters. So that is response code. So we can just say http response code and response code. And then the headers. So then we can say something like headers is explode from new line the parts 0. And then for each of the headers as header, we will say header parts is explode with a colon and space header. And then we will say header parts. Actually, I don't have to explode anything. I just do header and I pass the header in here because this is how PHP works. And I have to remove the first element in this array because that will be the response code. So I will say unset headers 0. So now we should be able to add some headers. So if we do something like redirect.gpt and I do PHP, I don't have to use PHP. What? I will just do redirect to /index.php page equals rust.html and name is test and age is 50. And I save this, and if I go to redirect.gpt, then what will happen is I will be redirected to my first website with test your age is 15. And let's do 404.gpt and let's say render error 404. And let's go to 404.gpt. Error, page not found. But did we get actually a response code? Let's refresh this and see what the response code is. Yes, it is actually 404. So we got a 404 response. Great. So now we can do all kinds of cool things. We cannot write the files at the moment. Maybe I should implement that in the future. But we can do all kinds of stuff with this. Let's actually try to make like a beautiful website with it. So let's call this website.gpt and let's do something like the header is new header template, and I will pass in this PHP now kind of. I will pass in title, and this is my website, and I will pass in the style, which will be header style law firm. This is a law firm which we will make this website for, and I will say the menu equals new menu, and I will pass in here links which will be home, and I will pass in home.html and about us.html, and contact us will be contact us.html, and we will add a style which will be menu style vertical, and then the content equals get content by page name, and we'll say front page, and then the footer is render page footer, and then let's do here something like render all, which will take header menu content footer, and this is our website. So now if we go to website.gpt, let's see what kind of website this code generates. Error 500. What went wrong? Undefined array key 1. Okay, we got some weird response. Let's do here error log response, so we see what kind of response we actually get. So let's refresh this and see if this time it works. Error undefined function header template. Okay, so it seems that I forgot to include my header template. So I will say include template stuff.gpt. And let's do this again. I always do these newbie mistakes. I forget to include stuff. Explanation. Given the code, the given code appears to be a made-up programming language and is not valid in any known programming language. Without a valid interpreter for this language, it is not possible to provide any meaningful output. Additionally, the provided input of GET request for a PHP file is not relevant to the given code. Okay, let's change our prompt. Message. The programming language used may be a completely made-up language. In that case, provide the output that you could assume that the code would generate. So let's try one more time. An error occurred while parsing or executing the code. The code includes references to templates and functions that are not defined or provided. Please check the code and include all necessary. Damn it, template stuff. Let's put a use statement. I forgot that this is how it works. Use header template menu and content repository and renderer. Okay, is that what you want? The given code is incomplete and contains syntax errors. It cannot be executed as is. Therefore, an error response with status code 500 is returned. Renderer, I forgot an R in there. Let's change this format. It's too much like PHP. Maybe it doesn't understand that this is actually GPT, not PHP. So let's do like this and render all. That should work. Come on, refresh. Failed to interpret code. Please check the syntax and try again. Okay, apparently I don't know how to write in my own freaking language. So let's do this. Header template with title, with style. And it should work, come on, this should work. Let's try one more time. No output because it is a mix of multiple programming languages and libraries that are not defined in its prompt. Okay, well that is disappointing. What if I do just render menu and the header is render header. And then I will render all of these things. Let's see if it likes this one. Error 500. Again, I got some. Failed to interpret code. No output can be generated. No valid programming language detected in input. You have been tasked to interpret a made-up code. Given the following input and code, provide the result of the code. Just guess if you can't reliably determine what the output should be. Come on, you have to be able to guess this. Come on. No, it is not able to do this. As an AI language model, I cannot reliably determine the output as it depends on the implementation of the functions. Well, I said if you cannot reliably determine that, then make it up. Okay, maybe this was too complicated for ChatGPT. Well, at least we can write some code in Rust and in C and make it appear in the browser. So I think I will end today's video here. Let me know in the comments what do you think of this code interpreter using ChatGPT. Could this actually be used for something useful or is it just a toy? Well, at least it's a fun toy to play around with. So thanks for watching and I will see you in the next one. Make sure to subscribe so you actually see the next one.